I'm Rabbi Good Vach, Good Yar, from Yerushalayim. It's 8:30 in the evening, and we're starting from Yud Amid Beis, 11 lines up. I'm Rabbi Laza. Ir Sheruba Reitzvim. You have a city that, as a result of many Ritzichas B'Shogeg, now has a majority of murderers in the area in the area Miklat. Ein Koletis. It's not going to work. It's not going to be a city of refuge. Shneimar. Because the pasuk says, "V'diber be'oznei ziknei o'er hahi es devarav." His words, v'lehushvu divrayim lidvarav, and their words are not equal to his words because they're not reitzvim. From Rebbe Laza, another halacha: Ir she'ein ba zakenim, a city does not have what zakenim, elders, meaning the Talmidei Chachamim. Ein a koletes, it doesn't work. The beinin, you need that what? The ziknei or that you speak the ziknei of the city. In other words, we have to fulfill the psukim, the leka, and you don't have it. Itmar, ir she'ein ba zakenim. Now that we said this din of zakenim by Ari Miklat, we're going to extend it to what? To other areas. So ir she'ein ba zakenim, a city that what does not have zakenim. Rav Ami ve'Ravasi chad amar koletes v'chad amar eina koletes. Okay, so now a city that doesn't have zakenim. So Rabbi Losa says, "Ir she'ein ba zakenim v'koletes b'inin ziknei v'leka itmar ir she'ein ba zakenim Rav Ami v'Ravasi chanam koletes chanam eina koletes. Laman di'am eina koletes b'inin ziknei v'leka, like Rabbi Losa. Laman di'am koletes mitzvah ba'alma. That we say that you need zakenim is not to be even say that it doesn't have a din of Orei Miklat. Mitzvah ba'alma. In other words, it's a mitzvah to have them, but if you don't have them, it doesn't lose its ability to go ahead and be a city of refuge. The Ir she'ein ba zakenim, Rav Ami Ravasi, chad amar nasa ben soru morer. You could have a ben soru morer in that city. Chad amar ein nasa ben soru morer. You can't. Lamandi amar ein nasa ben soru morer beinin ziknei iro. Because the pasuk says regarding ben soru morer, v'tafsu by aviv v'imai. His father and mother will grab him. They'll go ahead and take him out to the elders of the city. So in Mele, it's mashma that you need elders of the city in order to have the ben soru morer. However, the Gemara says that we have machlekes. One says what mitzvah. One says that what it doesn't work. You can't have ben soru morer. And another one says I lost the place. You could be mitzvah ba'alma to have them. One says they may via egla rufa, you would bring an egla rufa, and others say you won't. As you need, it says by egla rufa, and the city that will be closer to the corpse. There it is. They'll take egla rufa and bring a benacham. So again, just starting off from the point of Ari Miklat, you go ahead and extend it other areas of Ziknei Yireh. Amrav Chama bar Chanina, Veiman Nemru Pashas Roitzvim, the Lashon Asa. Why is the Pasha of Roitzvim said in a strong Lashon? Throughout Sefer Yeshua, when it says Vayoyim Hashem al Yeshua, when it comes to the Parsha of setting up the Ari Miklat, it says Vayidabe Hashem al Yeshua. Vayidabe is a lashon mashma. It's it's a strong lashon. It's a very strong lashon, right? So Vayidabe is a long lashon. So one wants to know why is it said b'lashon asad? It says Vayidabe Hashem al Yeshua leimar, Daber el bnei Yisrael leimar, Tru lachem Yisrael miklat, Asher dibarti elechem. What's the reason? Because in other words, obviously Sefer Yeshua, Sefer Nevi'im. And this is the Moshe Rabbeinu set aside 3. So the command to set aside Yeshua, 3 others, is Midivrei Torah. So therefore it said the Lashon of Asa, a Lashon of Yidaber. Fred the Gemara Lameim, the Chol Dibur Lashon Kasha. You need to tell me every Dibur is a Lashon of harshness, a Lashon of strength. In Kidduch Siv, Dabar Ish Adani Aretz Itanu Kashais. It says when the brothers came back from Mitzrayim, they reported to Yaakov what happened. They said that, because Yosef gave him a hard time. It's Lashon Dibur, so he spoke to him in a different way. Fred Gemara Batanya Nidberu. It says Oz Nidberu, right? And Ein Nidberu El Lashon Nachas. So you see the shirish of Nidberu is Dalet Vav, Dalet Vez Reish. The same shirish. So also why you say it's one hand lashon nachas, and the other hand you're telling me now it's lashon koshi. Now you tell me it's lashon nachas. L'cheinu oimer yad beramim tachtenu. Right, so l'chayr means very also lashon of nachas. Gemara says daber l'chud and yidaber l'chud. So nidbru and yidaber is lashon nachas. However, the lashon of diber is what is lashon kosher. Simanim Rabbanon mehimnei b'sifri. Pligibar of Yehuda Rabbanon. Chanama b'fnei sheshiyim. The reason why he spoke to Yeshua in a harsh manner is because after the 7 years of kibush and 7 years of chiluk, total of 14, instantaneously he should have set up the cities, and he didn't. So the reason why I said by Yidaber Hashem is because Sheshah, because he was delayed in keeping the Devar Hashem. The Chad Amar, and one says, right, Chad Amar Fnei Shein Shel Torah, as we said earlier, because what? It's the words of the Torah. It says, V'yichtav Yeshua Satvaram Eile b'Sefer Torah Elikim. It says in Sefer Yeshua, V'yichtav Yeshua Satvaram Eile b'Sefer Torah Elikim. V'yikach Evan Gedoyla v'Yekimel Hashem Tachas Eila Hashem v'Mikdash Hashem. So what words did he write? It says, V'yichtav Yeshua Satvaram Eile b'Sefer Torah Elikim. Pligi Rabbi Yehuda Rechem Yechad Am Shmeina Psukim. The words of the Torah that he wrote is the last 8 psukim of the Torah that Moshe was nifta, and Yeshua wrote them. We had machloikas exactly whether Moshe wrote in B'dema. If you might remember, he spoke at a beautiful gra that Moshe wrote in Dema, Lashon mixed up, and then it spelled out the event, or that Moshe wrote in B'dema with tears, and then Yeshua wrote it. V'chadam Ari Miklat. The very so when it says the Torah, it's either the last 8 psukim or it's the halachas of Ari Miklat. Therefore, it says b'sefer Torah selikim. Alamad yamari miklat my b'sefer Torah selikim. No, it's mashma you wrote in the sefer, Kenny. You wrote in the sefer itself. But if you're telling me that it's the Ari Miklat, he didn't write the sefer. Shmeina psukim means he wrote the Torah itself. He wrote the Torah. But now you're telling me that he didn't write the Torah. You mean it's mashma he wrote in the Torah. So good Ari Miklat is divrei Torah, but it's not in the Torah proper. And from the Gemara it says, Hachikama. Here's where you have to read the pasuk. Vayichlu Yeshua b'sifro es advaram ha'eleh haksuvim b'sefer Torah selikim. Moshe wrote in his sefer the sefer Torah selikim. In other words, he wrote in the sefer he didn't write in the Torah itself. He wrote the words that stayed in the Torah, which is the parsha of Ari Mikla. Now the Gemara for some reason brings this in. Sefer Torah shetachlu b'pishtan, that you went ahead and sewed sinus, you put them together, you put it with pishtan, you put it with linen. Is a kasher sefer Torah. So pligi bar Rav Yehuda of Rav Meir, chadam makosher v'chadam apostle. Man me'am apostle d'chsiv, mantia Torah Hashem b'ficha. V'yishus kol Torah kula tefillin. Tefillin says Torah Hashem b'ficha. Ma tefillin lachamash misina l'toifman b'gidin. Lachamash misina that tefillin have to be with gidin from a kosher animal. I've called toifman b'gidin has to be a sinu from a kosher animal versus pishtan. So therefore it's possible. The idach, the one who says it's kasha, ki iskish, when it goes ahead and we make the hekesh, the tefillin, it's lamutta b'picha. It's only that it has to be sefer Torah written from something that's permitted to put in your mouth. The l'chaysav la'yishka, but the halachas of the sefer Torah are not the same as the halacha of tefillin, and thus you would be able to make it with a pishtan. We do not paskin like that, which makes the next piece of Gemara difficult. Amarav Chazinalu l'tefillin de bechavivi the tafiri b'kisna that it was sewn with kisna. But let's say there is a girsa over here when it says the dalid the tefillin. It says the sifri. If you look at the dalid in the Maseres Hashas, we changed the girsa. Amrav Chazinalu b'sifri de bechavivi. In other words, the sifri means in the sefer of, but they didn't go. That you could do it. In other words, it's fair to say that they actually made a sefer Torah sewn together with kisna. So to say that they saw it is fair. So you're not saying you saw it. We saw in the sefer that it said you could do it, but in Achinami it was never done. The attacker was because the halacha is not like that. The sifri states that you could do it. The halacha is not like that. Says the Mishnah. Echad mishuach. Now we know that the Kohen Gadol, upon the death of the Kohen Gadol, the Reitzeach goes free. And this is the Mishnah that discusses it. Now we know there are a few different Kohanim Gedolim. The first one that we know is the one that was Meshuach B'Shem and Amishcha, before the days of Yoshiyahu, where they went ahead and hid the Orin and the Shem and Amishcha with the Orin. The Shaila, in Achinami, there's the Rambam's Mashma, they didn't hide it with it, because or else how did they go ahead and anoint the after that time, how did they use the Shemin HaMishcha of anything? Is the Rambam's medayik that anyway, l'chol hapachas, it was hidden, and they didn't. I guess Rashi learns it was hidden with it, and therefore any kohen gadol after that was anointed meruba, not anointed, but he was recognized meruba begodim by the fact he was wearing 8 begodim. That was magdash him. In addition, there was a kohen that was what he served on Yom Kippur if the kohen became pasul. That's a kohen gadol shavar. And then there's a kohen that's Meshuach Mulchama who goes ahead and announces people that makes this whole speech in Parshas the Kiseitze. Okay. Says Gemara, Echad Meshuach b'Shem HaMishcha, but it's one, a kohen gadol that was Meshuach b'Shem HaMishcha, right? Rashi says, Heim kahanim gedolim shayu ad Yoshiyahu. The Echad HaMeruba b'Begodim, and whether it's one that is what Meruba b'Begodim, the Echad Sha'ava M'Meshicha Chaysai, and one that was Oiva Meshicha. I think the Rambam says, I'm remembering, that it wasn't stored with the Aron, because if it was, they'd have to go into the Kodesh Kodashim each time to get to use it. It could have been hidden along with, hidden. So it doesn't disagree with Rashi when it was hidden. I think the machlokes is, was it kept there or not? Was it kept by the Aron? Like we know this, it's in Senes Haman was kept there. We know the Argas shell, the Plishtim that they sent back was there. But according to the Rambam, Shemin HaMishcha was not kept there, but it was hidden with it. Okay, back in the Mishnah, that's one that had served and now is no longer serving. He took the place of the Kohen Gadol and is no longer serving. In all of these, the death of any one of these will go ahead and bring back the Reitzeach. The Gemara is going to ask you all of them. Rabbi Yehuda, even the Kohen who would make the speech would return the Reitzeach. They would provide for the murderers, they would provide for them food and clothing. That they shouldn't daven that the children that their sons should die. Okay. How do you know that how do you know that they come with the death of the Kohen Gadol? Says the Gemara, the pasuk says, in pasuk it says, "Ve'etzilu eida soretzeach miyad goel adam." And he'll stay in that city at Moisa Kohen Agadol Hashem Moshe Chesed b'Shem HaKodesh. Okay, it's mashma only one that's Shem HaKodesh. We'll see a little bit. Uksiv Minani Mili, any one of these three. In other words, guys, it's not just one. It's any one of these three. Guys, what? The Meshuach Mulchama, the Meruba Begodim, and Oven Meshichasei. Right? You need three. So we have one pasuk that says, "V'yoshev ad Moisa Kohen Gadol, uksiv ki be'ir miklata yoshev ad Moisa Kohen Gadol," and the third pasuk uksiv achri Moisa Kohen Gadol. So you have 3 pasukim for 3 Kohen Gadolim. Meshuach Mulcham, not Meshuacham. Shemin HaMishcha, Meruba Begodim, and Oven Meshichasei. Now Rabbi Yehuda, who says a fourth one, where's his source? He says Meshuach Mulchama. Rabbi Yehuda ksiv kra achrina loshev l'sheves be'eretz ad Moisa Kohen. Now it does say God, it says Kohen. The Idach and the Tanakama does not go ahead and say this fourth pasuk. When it says, doesn't say what Gadol, it means one of the previous, either the Meshuach, Shem HaMishcha, Meruba Begodim, or of Meshichasei. The Fikach Imoisem Shel Kahanim would go ahead and provide food for them, right? And in order that what they should daven and daven that he should die. Time with loy matzli. The reason that they should not daven. Mashma ha-matzli, maisi. Mashma would daven, they would die. But the pasuk says, "Katzipor lenoid kidror lo'oif can't kill the skinam loy savai." Pasuk mishtei. Just like a bird flies away, kill the skinam loy. Well, it's not going to happen. So what are you worried about? Let him daven. It'll kill the skinam. So who cares? Let him daven. We don't care. What are you worried about? So. What's the girsa over here? Zayin. Amar Hahu Saba said this elder mi pirkei de Rava Shemieli. I heard from the learnings of Rava. Shahayolehen levakesh rachmim al doiron loy bikshu. In other words, it's not that they're going to daven and go ahead and create a siba that he should die. There is a chait for the Kohen Gadol that he possibly could tap into that he should die. that if he would have davened on Yom Kippur properly for these people, they wouldn't end up in that situation. Kohen Gadol and Kippur, I'm learning human now. It's a job that no one would want. I don't know. The Bayesheni, the Gemara Daf Ches or Tes and Yuma says how many Kanim the Bayesheni als Gaiva. There's so many of them. Every year they would die. It was crazy, and it was nuts. But you see over here that they would, they had a cheshbon. Look, a guy kills somebody. They blame the Kohen Gadol, and they would daven. That would go ahead and tap into their bot to be a tiny shemayim against them. In other words, those who say that the mothers didn't daven for the Kohen Gadol, they should not daven for the kids. Time of the matzli. The reason why the kids won't die because they daven. Holy matzli maisi. But if they didn't daven, the child would die. My havi ever. What could they have done? In other words, what else? What else could be done? In other words, there doesn't seem to be a reason over here. What could the Kohen Gadol have done to go ahead and stop? Let me make sure I learn right pshat over here. The time of the matzli, hispalu haroitzchem aleim sheyichyu. One second, Kenny. Okay, it's the roitzchem shouldn't daven that the Kohen Gadol shouldn't die. In other words, in the first pshat, it's the mother davening. In the second pshat, they would provide food that the roitzchem should daven that what they should live. They should daven that they should live. That's the pshat over here. One more time. Let's see one more time. Ikkedamasila, there are those who learn it. Kadeshi ispalu al b'neihem shelo yamusu, that the roitzchem should daven that they shouldn't die. Time of the matzli, the reason why they're not going to die, right? Halei matzli maisi. Why would they die? What did they do wrong? My havlel never. What else could he have done? The Kohen says, in Eretz Yisrael they said, in Bavel they said, Tuvia chata v'zingud mangid. Tuvia does an avera and zingud gets malchus. If you look at Rashi on the left side, Tuvia chata v'zingud mangid mishumahid amina b'arei psachim. Tuvia chata, Tuvia did a chet v'zingud asid bei b'yichidi, and instead of having two eidim, zingud comes alone. Shloichoya eisheni b'davar v'nagdei Rav Papa zingud, and he gave zingud who came and testified. He gave him malchus. Amlei Tuvia chata v'zingud magid. And then it became a mashal. So over here, the mashal's good. This guy goes ahead wad and kills, and the Kohen Gadol dies. It's Tuvia chayta. So here the right Seyach does not beira, and Zingun Magid, and the Kohen Gadol is going to die. So that's the way they said it in Eretz Yisrael, in Bavel. In Eretz Yisrael, they had a different saying. And Hassam in Eretz Yisrael, they said, Shechem Nasiv, Shechem gets married to Dinah, Umebage Gozir, and the people of the city, they paid the price, right? He was the one who did the Aveira, they paid the price. So Amahu Saba, a Pabrika, the Rav Shmili, from the Perikah of Rabbi I heard, Shahayolem Levakesh Rachim Al Dairan, like Bikshu. They should have gone ahead, and at the same time that we said earlier, they should have davened, and they didn't. Kahuda Gavra the Achli Aryeh, there was a person who was eaten by a lion. The Rachak Tilsa Parsei Minei Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, a distance of 3 parsois from Yeshua ben Levi. And he didn't come for 3 days. He didn't count them. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was custom. We know that Eliyahu would come and learn with him, and you see that Eliyahu held a taina, and this great tzaddik that in his Dalet Amos, literally 3 parsois, someone was eaten up by a lion. I'm Rabbi Yudam Rav. Kill the chacham, the klala of a chacham. We're quoting the end of that pasuk. The klala of chacham, afilu bechinam hiba. The klala of a chacham, afilu bechinam. Even if there's no reason for it to happen, it will happen. In other words, he goes ahead and curses. He gives a klala, and even though it no longer is a reason to happen, it's still going to happen. So once he might see words from his mouth. Words are very, very careful. You got to be very careful with words. We know that Ataras Nadarim, person can create things with his, he magnifies things with your words. Words are very, very powerful. It says when Adam was created as a ruach memalala, it's a creature of speech. So his speech is a very, very powerful thing. So we see a klala of a chacham, Afil b'chinam hiba. Mino, Lami Achi Teufel. Remember Achi Teufel? We just saw him as one of the people who didn't have a chelik in Olam Haba, and he was the advisor to Avshalom. He joined Avshalom's rebellion because his granddaughter was Bathsheba. But it says Bathsheba Bas Aliyam Bas Ben Achi Teufel, and therefore he felt that David was wrong. Shebeshosh shekorbet David Shisin. David was looking for the place of the Beis Hamikdash, so he found the Shisin, these subterranean deep tunnels. Kappa tohaima, uboile mishpita la'alma. Rashi brings that he found this place and there was a piece of cheres, and the cheres said, "Don't touch me." So of course he lifted it up, and the world began to flood. Okay, and Omar said, "David, ma'u lichtov shema chaspa umeshadi b'tohaima." Right, the lake Yadufte. Who would tell me is it permitted to go ahead, write the shema mufayrish on chaspa, a piece of earthenware, throw it in the water, that the water should reside. The Amar said, no one told anything to him. Amar, anyone who knows the answer to this question should be bad, should choke to death. Achitophel made a kalvachayim. Amar, umalas shalom ben ish leishtai. Make the ish shalom b'ish ish by ish saita. Amar hatayra shemish nifta b'kedusha yimacha alamayim. The one that what named those three Mikdusha should be what erased on the water. The Chalal and Kuloi Kolshkein. So for one person to write the Shem on fire to save, certainly for the whole world. So in other words, Achitophel answered the question. So no longer should the klala be in vogue. After all, he said whoever knows it should choke, and whoever told it doesn't say it. But he said it. He said it. He told it to him. Amalei Shari said Achitophel to David, it's permitted. Chasar Shem Chaspa. David wrote the name of Chaspa. Shadei at the Haima, threw it down in the depths. Nachas and staff to come at Duchte, and went back to its place. Achitophel, when he advised Avshalom, they didn't listen to him. They listened to Chushei Aki. V'yachsher es Chamar, he saddled his donkey. V'yakam v'yalach beisai, Eliroi, v'yitzavel beisai, v'yichanik. He can't remember the sense what to do, and he killed himself. So again, you see that v'yichanik. Amrav Avo, kill us chacham. Afila tenai hiba. The first one was a chinam for nothing. The second one is conditional. Minalan me'eli. Eli was the kohen in the time of the Shmuel, the time of Mishkan Shiloh, and Shmuel gets a message, and Eli wants another message. To come to Shmuel, koyas el chalakim, so Hashem should do to you, Yosef, im techachem mimenu davar, if you hold back from me anything that Hashem told you. He told him everything, that what's going to happen with the Aron being captured and Eli falls backwards and dies. Like he didn't hold back anything. So nothing should happen to Shmuel. Shmuel's sons did not go in his way. So you see, there was a Tanai, and the Tanai was fulfilled. He told it to him. Nonetheless, the klal of the Chacham, it comes to roost. I'm a base. I'm Rabbi Yehuda Amarav. Nidui al Tanai Sarach Hafara. Nidui on a Tanai needs Hafara. So we're all familiar with Yaakov refusing to allow Binyamin to go down to Mitzrayim. The Shiftei Kod knowing that they couldn't appear in front of Yosef unless they provided the appearance of Binyamin. So says Yehuda the following: Anochi Erevenu, I will guarantee him. Miyadi Tvakshenu, you from my hands you can request. In loy hevi oisem elecha, we don't bring him back to you. And I will have sinned in front of you all my days. Yehuda takes responsibility for Binyamin, and this is nidui on al Tanai. Sarach afar minal Yehuda dechsev im loy hevi oisem elecha. If I don't bring him back to you, and then I will sin to you all the days of my life. It's very interesting. Shmuel Achmeni is always brought down in Agadata. Very common. He's brought down in Agadata. He seemed to be the Rebbe of Agadata. Shmuel Achmeni, Moshe Rabbeinu in his bracha, he says, "Let Ruvain live and not die." Right, and right next to it says V'zois Yehuda. Like in other words, there must be a connection between the two. The V'zois Yehuda. All the 40 years that Yisrael in the Midbar, Atzmoisav Shal Yehuda Hayim Golim Ba'arim. The Atzmois, the bones of Yehuda, his skeleton, his shuldan was rattling around because it was not intact, and it was rattling around in his arim. All the other shiftei kod, their shuldan was intact, except Yehuda's. Ad Sham Moshe ubikesh lerachmim. Moshe stood up and davened. Amal lefon Rabbanu Shalom. Mi garam Ruven sheyoida. Who caused Ruven to be moida about moving the beds? Yehuda. There's Zeisli Yehuda, and this is what happened to Yehuda. In other words, Yechi Ruven. Why is Ruven alive? Because of Yehuda. There's Zeisli Yehuda, and this should happen to Yehuda. Shmar Hashem Kol Yehuda. Right? What happened? Ole Vari L'Shafa. They went in and they became intact. They went back into their place. But as of yet, Yehuda was not allowed into the Mesivta. It says, Velama to Vienu, Moshe Rabbeinu continues, into his nation, he should be brought. He got into the yeshiva and he wasn't able to go ahead and carry on with the dialogue with the Chachamim. Said Moshe Rabbeinu, Yod of Ravloi. So now he was able to do it. However, he couldn't answer a question. Moshe Rabbeinu says that. Good. Therefore, all the tefillah of Moshe was to go ahead. You see that you need hafara. And Moshe Rabbeinu took care of the Tanai of Ruvain, even though Ruvain fulfilled it by restoring Binyamin to Yaakov. Iboilahu. The misas kulan hu chayzer, misas echem. Let's say you have a kohen Mashiach, right? And you have a kohen who was over. Good. He was over because he served, and now the original kohen came back. Do you need both of them to die, or just one? The Gemara wants to know. So what's the din? The misas echem him, or idilma, the misas kulan hu chayzer, misas tashma nigmar dina b'loy kohen gadol. There's a gemara din without a kohen gadol. It's the next mishnah. Eini yotze misham lo'olam. He never leaves there forever. He's stuck. If you need the death, what? It must be there's no one else around, right? It must be that what? You need the death of all of them, right? So my answer is b'dahadach b'dalekah. You know, fellas, if you're telling me that the death of one of them does the job, so good. You have a next Mishnah. The Mishnah says that the Kohen Gadol dies. Let the other one, the Mubim Begadim or Vishnasai, let then. Ella must be you need the death of all of them. But my answer is no. They're speaking now after the Leka. You don't have anyone. You only have one. You only have the Mubim Begadim. You only have the Shem and Mishra. So therefore you have no raya. Says the Mishnah. Mishanig Madinai, Meis Kohen Gadol. Let's say the Kohen Gadol is alive from the time of the court case. There's a Gemara din, and now the Kohen Gadol dies before he goes to Golis. Harizei in the Goyla, he doesn't go to Golis. You say it's a Kavachomer in a second. Imashlei Nigmar Dinai Meis Kohen Gadol. Let's say there's no Gemara din, the Kohen Gadol dies. Umanu Acher Tachtav, they appoint another one. Acher Mikan Nigmar Dino. So in other words, there's one Kohen Gadol at the beginning of the din, another Kohen Gadol before the Gemara din. Then again, don't say since he began the Gemara din with the first guy, right? You have to be the first guy. No, even what the second guy, he would go free. Nigmar dinish the loy Kohen Gadol. Let's say it's a Gemara din and there's no Kohen Gadol, or the hahari Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol is the right seach, or the Kohen Gadol shaharag, or the Kohen Gadol gets killed. He doesn't leave there forever. So three cases. There's a Gemara din without a Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol is the killer, or he's the killee. That's it. That's Kiddush HaChodesh, let's say. Not for Eidus Mammon, but Eidus Nefashos. Now it's going in the gradations of greatness, of greater Eidus. Even if this person who's the killer, he's stuck in the city, and Bnei Yisrael need him. He killed B'Shoigeg, he's in Golis, and this is crucial. We need this fellow. Like David's nephew, the great Yoav ben Tzruya, the great, fantastic general of David. The pasuk says, he'll put him back in the Miklat, says Shama, Sham Tehedi Rasai, that's where he has to live. Sham Tehei Misasai, that's where he has to die. Sham Tehei Kvurasai, that's where he's buried. Keshem Sheir Kaletes, just like the Arab Miklat is Kailet, Kach Tchuma, 2,000 Amos within the city is Kailet. Reitzeach Shiatza Chutz Tchum, Reitzeach who killed B'Shaigeg, who leaves the Tchum, Umatzu Goyal Adam, the Goyal Adam finds him outside the city. Basically, the Yom Mitzvah to kill him, Biyad Goyal Adam. Rishus Biyad Kol Adam, any other person can kill him. Rishus, Rabbi Kiva Omer Rishus Biyad Goyal Adam, it's Rishus for the Goyal Adam, the Chol Adam, Ein Chayav Malav. The Gerso will be Geris, the gross gersa v'chol adam ein chayav malav. So again, let Rabbi Yossi Glili the mitzvah to kill him. Let Rabbi Akiva of rishus to kill him. Right. However, according to Rabbi Yossi Glili, it's rishus for everybody else. According to Rabbi Akiva, it's not permitted. But if you do kill him, ein chayav malav. My timer, right? My timer. What's the reason? She'ena goyla. Why doesn't he go to Galus? The Kohen Gadol b'shas Gemar Din. The Kohen Gadol is around, and there's a Gemar Din, and then he dies after the Gemar Din. Why doesn't he go to Galus? Says the Gemara, Amar Abaya Kal v'Chaymen. Uma misha gola kfar yotza achshav misha le gola einay din shlei igla madach sama who's in Galus now. Madach sama who's in Galus now does not go ahead. What gets free when the Kohen Gadol dies? Certainly, if someone who was not in Golus should not go to Golus if the Kohen Gadol dies. Fred, 1 second, I don't understand that. The one goes free because he was already got his kapara because he was in Golus. But the loy gola, but the one that had not gone ahead, the loy gola, right? The loy gola, loy, maybe what? Maybe not. In other words, just because the Kohen Gadol is dead does not preclude you going. You didn't get your kapara yet, so maybe he has to go until the Kohen Gadol, another Kohen Gadol is appointed and dies. Says midi Golus kam mechapra. You think it's the Golus that's mechaper? Misas Kohen mechaper. It's the misa of the Kohen. So therefore, it's unnecessary for him to go to Golus. As soon as the Kohen Gadol dies, he's good. As long as the Kohen Gadol dies, he's okay. Imachlo nigmar dinoi. Right, if they appointed a second Kohen Gadol, he goes, that's a Kohen Gadol. Not immediately. Amrav Kanada Makra, V'yoshiv Ba Ad Moisa Kohen Gadol, Hashem Mashach Esoi B'Shem HaKodesh. Right, he sits there, Ad Moisa Kohen Gadol, Hashem Mashach Esoi, that he anointed with the Shem HaKodesh. V'chihu Moishchai. The right say, go ahead and anoint the Kohen Gadol. Elazeh Nimshach B'Yamav. He goes free, the one that was Nimshach in his days. And this one, the second one, was Nimshach in his days. My Chavilila Nevad, what could he have done? At the time of the death, he wasn't even Kohen Gadol yet. He should have gone ahead and daven that he should have a Gemar Din Liskos. But late Bikesh, and he didn't. So a very interesting shot. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to daven that Bezdin should go ahead. Bezdin's going to paskin what Bezdin paskins. You should paskin that Bezdin should arrive at the right, that Sheik Mardina L'schus. What does that mean? So I saw a very interesting shot. You saw that if everyone finds the guy guilty, he doesn't get killed. In Sanhedrin. He's davening that everyone should find him guilty for Golus. So you're not changing the psak. You're finding that they should all be guilty for Golus. In other words, don't have roiv dayanim for Golus. All are dayanim. That's what you're davening for. So that would be very gishmak. Okay, let me see who I saw say that. Okay, Emor Rabbi. Naktina, we have a Messiah. Nigbar dino umes. Ma'lichin esatz myself the shon. If the Gemardini dies, the Reitzayach, they bring his bones there. D'chsev loshev l'sheves ba'aretz ad Moisa Kayin bezel yeshiva shi ba'aretz. What's yeshiva ba'aretz? Haviyam ezukfura tana meis koydim shemeis Kohen Gadol. If he dies before the Kohen Gadol, Malichin atz Moisa bel kivrei Avaisav. He brings it to what his father's kever. D'chsev yoshev ha'reitzayach el eretz achuz asay. Ezi yeshiva shi b'eretz achuz asay. Haviyam ezukfura. L'chayav kluchidei is what you do with him. Nigmar Dina Vanasa Kohen Ben Gerusha Ben Chalutza. How about this? Okay, Kenny, I'm going to stop here, and then we're going to say another.